Good morning, everyone. How are we? I hope you guys all had a nice Cinco de Mayo. So, before we get started on the recaps of the West trial, I wanted to tell you about Smart 911. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not familiar with it. And Smart 911 is a website that you can visit either on your desktop or you can even download the app on your cell phone. It's basically a spot where you go in, you put in your name, your vehicle, your address, if you have pets, children. It kind of just gives some basic information about you. And if anybody's worried about privacy concerns, it's really no more than what you would put on Facebook. More and more law enforcement agencies are adopting Smart 911 into their systems. Basically, what it does is if you ever have to call 911, the officer automatically has this information that you've put into Smart 911 there. I learned after covering the Kyle Plush case that they don't have everything that a lot of us think they do. Like, you automatically would think they have your location, they have all this. I think a lot of it's deceptive. Not every county or city has that set up. So, Smart 911 is basically a way to fill in the gap for all of that, and it doesn't cost anything, and it could help save your life or someone in your family's lives. And I just encourage everybody to check it out. Just give it a look, see if it's something that you feel comfortable doing, and um, I've gone in there, I filled out my stuff. Where I live, they don't have it, set up yet, but it's getting out there more and more. It costs I think over $40,000 a year for each county to run this system. But however, considering the type of things that it could do, I think that it's just gonna become one of those things where eventually every law enforcement in the United States is gonna have it. Now, the reason I say even if they don't have it in your area, you could be off traveling somewhere, you could be in a different county, you're not even, you could be in a county over and they might have it. I just highly recommend it. So thanks for listening about that piece, you guys. Now let's get to these sweet babies. So I found these new pictures today, and look at these little guys. Aren't they precious? Now, these were when they were much younger, and I do believe they were taken by their original foster mom, Sonia, because she took a lot of photos of them. And I think all the photos that we've seen out there were because of her and not the Wests. They weren't really doing a whole lot of photo taking of these children, as we know. So let's get to it and see if we can get some justice for these babies. They did not have court on Friday, so I just have an update from Thursday's. Prosecutor Smith brought up Alexander Calaveras. Now, he was a previous resident in Arlington, Texas. And they asked Calaveras about a tip police received in the investigation for Orrin and Orson. The tip claimed two little boys were sighted at an address in Arlington, and the address matched Calaveras' address. Now, Calaveras does have two small sons. Smith gave the jury a photo of Calaveras with his family, and they were passing that around the jury box. Calaveras matches the description the man described in the tip seen with two little boys. So basically, the two little boys very much resemble Orrin and Orson. So I think basically they just wanted to squash that theory, right? Kudos for them for bringing him up for that. And that was it. Nobody crossed. Well, no, I take that back. Hennessy did do a brief cross on him, but you know, as we know in the past, Hennessy doesn't do a whole lot, so it's not even notable. Let's see. Next, we have John Dunn. He is a detective with the Bakersfield Police Department, and he was assigned to assist with a search warrant on a detached garage in Bakersfield on Oakdale Drive. The garage belonged to Maria Flores. Now, Maria Flores is the friend of Jacqueline's mom. Smith confirms the photo was not taken from a garage in California City. Dunn says that's correct. Smith says, I have no further questions. Oh, they're just wrapping stuff up. They're just getting them up on the stand and saying, 1, 2, 3, thank you, ma'am. You're done. Let's see. Then, of course, Jacqueline's attorney, Torres Stallings, asked Dunn if he was tasked with surveilling the West van while they were at this location, and Dunn said no. She said, "Thank you, I have no further questions." And then Dunn was excused. Then Prosecutor Smith recalled Jesse Perez, who is a Bakersfield Police Department detective. Perez reviewed the Facebook records relating to Jacqueline West. So Smith was asking him about a conversation between Jacqueline and Perla Martinez, and it occurred on December 17th. Then they discussed a Facebook call. Oh, okay. So this is a Facebook call from December 22nd, 2020. Perez was charged with watching recordings of these video chats. Then Torres Stallings got up and asked him about the Facebook messages. Perez reviewed the entire record. He said he believes this includes dates back to September of 2020. She wanted to move some of the messages into evidence. Smith objected. They called a sidebar. And Judge Brimmer said, "I'm going to withhold my ruling on that for right now." So I don't know what's he's going to, I guess he's going to look over those over the weekend or something. So Perez was excused from the stand. They then called Chad Garrett, who is a Bakersfield Police Department sergeant. He previously worked as a homicide detective. Garrett gathered phone records regarding this case. He also investigated online files like Google files related to Jacqueline and Trezell's records. Garrett explains how records could show if a user deleted all their data on their accounts. And then Prosecutor Smith asked Garrett about how many phones Trezell and Jacqueline had associated with them. Garrett said he observed around 5 different numbers. Now, I mean, I think they're going back a good ways, and I think that they also I do know that from previous days' testimonies that there was 1 or 2 phones in the home that were no longer in use. So that might be from that as well. So Smith was asking about records pertaining to a specific number. The number belonged to Jacqueline, and they were showing a call record sheet, and it shows when text messages and incoming calls and outgoing calls are sent. Then they went over the presentation Garrett created outlining Trezell and Jacqueline's phone numbers and call records. It even included like geolocation records of calls between the couple and Maria Martinez, Jacqueline's mom. Then Smith concluded, okay, and then they took a 15-minute recess. When they came back in, Victor Nasser, who is the assistant defense for Trezell, got up and asked Garrett about records he received from Google. And he asked about the deletion request time and the deletion range end time. The sheet shows a pattern of deletion for every 90 days, and Garrett points out that some deletion request dates repeat. I think he's probably talking about when you clear out your cookies or something, your computer or your phone or whatever it is, they'll automatically delete that stuff to keep more storage and memory on your device. So that's probably where he's going, yeah, but how do you know that's not how it got deleted? That they weren't trying to delete evidence. So I think that's where he was going on that. So then Tora Stallings got up and she was asking Garrett about October 13th, 2020. She says everything prior to that date in his report related to Trezell's old number. Everything after relates to his new number. She said this is because Trezell got a new phone. Then she kind of did the same thing for Jacqueline. She goes, okay, so this is because Jacqueline got a new phone, right? And he's like, yeah. So the last number in the report is a number associated with Maria Martinez's account. Garrett said this number was being used by Trezell and Jacqueline, both of them. Tora Stallings says, I have no more questions. And Garrett was excused. Okay, so they brought up the lead investigator, Hernandez, again. He said that he conducted an estimate of 70 to 80 interviews in the investigation. It also included the interview he did with Jacqueline West in July of 2021. He said he interviewed her in their blue room at the Bakersfield Police Department. Now, Jacqueline does have an attorney present with her in the room. In the recording, Jacqueline tells her attorney that the last time she was there, they went really hard on her, so she didn't want to go back alone. The detective asked Jacqueline if anything has changed or if there was anything else she wanted to tell them. She said no. Detective Hernandez asked about Orrin and Orson's adoption. Hernandez asked if the biological family has any contact with the kids after the adoption. Jacqueline said after the adoption and the move, they decided to go no contact with the family. Then Hernandez asked about the visitation the biological family had beforehand. Jacqueline says that the family had visitation. They would play with the boys, and sometimes an Aunt Titi would watch the boys. That's Aunt. Okay, that's where Titi keeps coming up. It's an aunt. Okay. Jacqueline tells Hernandez that Titi wasn't a relative of the boy's mother. She said Titi was a relative of one of the biological fathers. Okay. Hernandez tries to get more information about Titi. He tells Jacqueline that maybe this Titi could be involved in the boy's disappearance, and Jacqueline is open to this thought. Well, of course she is. Jacqueline said that she wasn't very open to the idea of letting the biological family into their lives, but she thought it would be good for the boys. She says after a while she changed her mind. Hernandez asked about the Cal City home. He asked Jacqueline about Orrin and Orson's personalities. She says that they are super sweet, then super grumpy. She says they love attention and playing with the kids. That is so generic. Hernandez asked if the boys had learning disabilities, and Jacqueline said it's possible, but they didn't see any problems. She said Orrin didn't like speaking very much, but would express himself in other ways. She said Orson was the same. Jacqueline is describing the night after they dropped the four older boys off at Trezell's mother's house, which is Wanda West. Then she describes taking Wanda to get money, then going to the grocery store. Because, in the past, when Wanda got up, she was explaining that they went to the ATM to get money for them to have gas money, and then I guess she brought them groceries. So, yeah, she's helping pay their way too. Jacqueline draws a layout of the car seat set up in the van. Hernandez asks, oh, and the reason they're doing that, guys, in case you missed it before, Wanda says she got into the van that night, and Jacqueline and Trezell had told her that the boys were in the very back of the van asleep, and that's why she didn't see them. She saw all the other four children, but she never saw Orrin and Orson. It's a little sketchy. So Hernandez asked if there were any other dates the couple visited Bakersfield besides December 5th and December 19th of 2020, and Jacqueline said she didn't think so. The detectives asked when the last time TT took the boys to watch them, and Jacqueline said it was in June of 2020. She said she got mad because TT was only supposed to watch them for a weekend, but she kept them for a week. Jacqueline said she had to change her phone number because the family wouldn't stop contacting her. She said the biological mother hasn't had contact with them since her last visitation. Then the detectives came back into the room after stepping out for a little bit, and he started asking her about the other children. Hernandez asked about diapers. Jacqueline says one of the older boys sometimes had accidents, so they had pull-ups for him. Hernandez asked what size Orrin and Orson wear, and she says the same. Jacqueline says that the area was broken up into a play spot and the school. Because, she homeschooled the kids, of course, guys. Can you imagine what that was like? I can't imagine her teaching anybody anything, but Hernandez asked about the night the babies were reported missing. They paused the video and they went in recess for lunch. When they came back, they just started back up the interview right away. And Detective Hernandez is asking about September 18th through September 20th of 2020. He asked where Orrin and Orson were when Wanda was watching the kids, and Jacqueline says the babies were with them when they went back to Bakersfield that weekend. Hernandez asked about September 20th, when the couple returned to Cal City. Jacqueline says that Trezell took the U-Haul back in Cal City. Hernandez asks where their van was at that time, and Jacqueline becomes confused. See, this is what I was saying about Wednesday's testimony. For some reason, when they were moving, their van just sat over at the Lotus Lane Apartments, and they didn't use it to help them move to Cal City. And I just found that really odd. When you've got like a van, hello, you want to backtrack a little bit because they had told Trezell's mom, Wanda, that the reason that she did not see the Orson while they were moving was because they were with Maria, Jacqueline's mom. Well, Maria, Jacqueline's mom, lives next door to them in the Bakersfield apartment complex. So when Wanda West drops her son Trezell off to pick up the van, you would think at that point he would stop and check in on Orrin and Orson at Maria's house or possibly go pick them up before he gets in his van to drive to his new home in California City, which is hundreds of miles away, right? No. As soon as she dropped him off, he gets in the van and he's like right behind her leaving the apartment complex. So the fact that kind of tells you right there that were they really over at Maria's? Could have been. Could have been, but it's sketchy. All right. So then she explains that Trezell and Wanda went back to Bakersfield and she stayed with the kids. Hernandez was trying to lock down who took the U-Haul back and where the kids were during this time period. And Jacqueline said Trezell took the U-Haul back. She said the kids would have had to be with her. And he said, but you're not sure. And then she said, I should have said they were with me. Yeah, they were with me. But see, at the time, they told Wanda, Trezell's mom, that they were with Maria Martinez, Jacqueline's mom. So the detectives keep trying to get an exact timeline of where Jacqueline was. If Trezell was taking the U-Haul back, Jacqueline says she was at the home. She's assuming, she said, wherever she was, the kids would have been with her. So then they ask her why they don't have recent photos of Orrin and Orson. And she said she had to change her phone and she ended up losing all the photos she had of them. I bet if taking photos of those boys was required to get her little monthly check for the adoptions, she would have been taking photos. So I guess during the interview, he asked her again, he's like, why she doesn't have any new photos of them. Jacqueline said she wasn't used to taking photos of the boys because they weren't allowed to do that when they were fostering them. I find that odd because Sonia took tons of pictures when she was fostering them. So then Hernandez asked why they didn't take more pictures after the boys were adopted, and Jacqueline says she was just used to it and she just doesn't take pictures of the kids. Hernandez points out that she has photos of Aiden and Adrian. And then Jacqueline responded by saying she only takes photos if they ask her to. Oh, so she's only going to take photos if the kids ask her to. Whatever. Hernandez asked about the statements one of the children made about Orrin's alleged death and Orson's disappearance. Jacqueline says the child has a very active imagination and that someone must be telling him things. Hernandez says things in the investigation are piling up. He tells Jacqueline that when the couple dropped the kids off at Wanda's on December 19th, 2020, Wanda didn't see Orrin or Orson that night. I know it's a tough situation that you're in, Hernandez says. Hernandez tells her that her child's story about Orrin and Orson has never changed, even when it's been repeated. And Hernandez tells Jacqueline that everyone's statements conflict with her statements. So you're going to call everybody a liar? Everyone else is a liar, Hernandez says. They stopped playing the video. Prosecutor Smith asked Hernandez about the investigation, and Hernandez said that they authored over 45 warrants for phone calls, social media records, electronics, Gmail, residences, vehicles, as well as others. Hernandez said they did two pretty big searches. He said they covered the northeastern side of the Cal City as well as the northern area of town, but nothing came up in the searches. So then Smith showed photos of the gate outside the West home, and Hernandez is describing the difficulty of opening the gate. Then they played an audio recording, and it's a recorded call between Trezell and Jacqueline and their children. In the recording, they ask their son if he's okay and tells him that he sounds sad. They tell him he doesn't have to talk to nobody. They tell him over and over that he doesn't have to say anything. So this is obviously after they were arrested and separated from the children. Okay. So Jacqueline and Trezell say they're trying to get the boys with their grandmother. I guess while these were all being played, this was being played. Trezell's fighting back tears listening to the call. See, I don't think, I honestly don't think Jacqueline has an emotional bone in her body. Just odd. So then Smith asked Hernandez about an interview he did with Wanda West. He played a recording of the detective speaking to Wanda, and Wanda tells them the couple told her that the boys were in the back seat, but she didn't see them. Then Tim Hennessy, who is Trezell's attorney, gets up to begin his cross. And he asked Hernandez to confirm that he wasn't originally the lead detective on this case, and Hernandez says correct. Then Hennessy asked about the theory of the investigation changing. Hennessy was attempting to ask about something the couple's realtor told the officers, and Smith objected, and the judge called for a sidebar. So then Hennessy asked Hernandez if prior to the forensic interview if he had spoken to Officer Hansen, and he said no, he had not. Hennessy was then asking about an exterminator who testified, and Smith objected again, and then they called another sidebar. Hennessy then asked Hernandez about the number of children the exterminator said he saw. On the day Hernandez interviewed him, he said he saw 6 to 7 children, then 5. Then he said 5 to 6 children, with one child being carried. Hennessy asked Hernandez about interview techniques. And then Hennessy's getting all his stuff in one day now. He starts going over once again that there were neighbors who possibly had more surveillance video on the west that Hernandez had never seen. So again, touching on the fact that they never got some, which is true, they didn't. Another sidebar was called. Then they started asking about Arlington, Texas tips. Hennessy said the tip was around Christmas. The judge then said to the jury that they can take into consideration how this tip impacted what Hernandez did, not the truthfulness of the tip itself. Hernandez said he is not aware if any officer spoke to the woman who provided the tip. And this is the tip that someone saw the boys. One thing that was said in the interview with Jacqueline, she says the adoption was finalized for the boys in April of 2019. And since the adoption, the biological grandmother, tried to go to the apartment. They would come over and knock, but she would not answer. Detective Hernandez had said that one of the reasons the West wanted to move was because it got to the point to where Aunt TT watched Orrin and Orson for a week. So the biological family was driving them nuts, I guess, according to them. So I guess Jacqueline said she didn't think she was on the biological mother's side because she didn't approve of her. Now, see, this is where the conflict comes in because again, she's stating that when they were moving, the little ones, that's what they referred to Orrin and Orson, were with her and Trezell. She doesn't say they were with her mother, Maria. Thomas Hernandez was asking her about how they punished the boys. She said, I wouldn't say that there was punishments. She said there would be consequences and we would have to they would have to sit next to me. He asked her if they had disabilities. She said they were delayed, but there was nothing that was concerning to them. He's like, what do you mean delayed? She said Orrin and Orson didn't like to speak to Jacqueline and Trezell, so they would go a while without speaking to them. Jacqueline did say that besides TT, no other biological family would contact them. TT kept coming to the knocking on the door and the grandmother wanted to see him. She said she did get some phone calls from unrecognizable numbers that she thinks were the biological family. I guess they were showing the jury pictures of the U-Haul, the same make and model of what the U-Haul they used to move was. And I can imagine they were looking at the inside of the U-Haul, like right there where you sit when you're driving it, probably to show that there's nowhere there could have been babies in the back seat. You know, like there's nowhere to put car seats in those things, I wouldn't think. But I don't know. I know that one time when I rented one, it was just like a straight seat all the way across the front. And it's like a box truck type style thing. There's no back seat to those. Hernandez asked her why Orrin and Orson did not come with them when they were moving, and she said that Orson was really crying a lot and that car rides do calm him down. She's talking about them moving back and forth. He was asking her to describe the move, and she said lots of cleaning and lots of packing. She talked about stopping at Trezell's mother, dropping off the other 4 children. He asked her On September 20th, if Trezell took the U-Haul back, she could not remember where the van was at that time. He asked her who was with her and Trezell in the van on the last moving trip from Bakersfield to Cal City. She paused and was thinking and did not say anything. Hernandez said he was trying to come up with as many leads as possible. She said wherever she was, the kids were with her. She just kept saying that. Something you remember. So in the interview or in the video, Hernandez is asking Jacqueline, is there anything you remember when Trezell took the van back to Bakersfield? Were the kids with you in Cal City? She said there was a lot going on. She was really tired. I'm trying to remember. Come on now. So that was about it. I'm hoping that we can do, I would love it if they finally release this stuff and I can put these videos of their interrogations and interviews with the police in a video all in one because that's going to be really interesting. But of course, everything's so closed to the public that it's just hard to get that out, get any of that. Now, we're not allowed to put any of that out right now. So, stay tuned for Monday's update. I'll say I'll probably, if I don't do an update on Monday, I'll do an update on Tuesday of Monday and Tuesday's trial because I'm pretty certain they're back on for Monday because they weren't in session this past Monday, but it was a special deal the judge had said. So stay tuned, guys. We do think this trial is going to wrap up a lot quicker than they expected. So we're getting to the end of it. Let's hope we get some justice for these babies. You guys have a blessed weekend. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you soon.